Attention, Sergeant on deck!
What's up guys, and welcome to Clone Admiral Week, where of course we're talking about Clone Admirals and Clone Navy personnel in general. So I hope you guys are enjoying these weekly themes. Let me know in the comments section below if you are. And without further ado, let's get right into the first video. We've been discussing Clone Wars space combat quite a bit in recent weeks, and yet we still have to touch on one less considered topic in that category. There were many great naval strategists in the Clone Wars, but most of them were on the same side. The significant majority of skilled naval commanders in the Clone Wars fought for the Confederacy. In this video, we'll be looking into this and explaining why. When it came to the skilled tacticians of the Clone Wars era, not many of them seemed to care much for the Republic. The best naval commanders of the war, including General Grievous, Admiral Trench, Commander Mirai, and Admiral Pause Tonith, all fought for the Confederacy. This holds true to a surprising degree. Mirai, who was a Mon Calamari, actually sided against his own species, which wasn't something that was seen often in the CIS. Even those naval officers that fought for the Republic didn't really seem to care for it all that much. Most of them, with a few notable exceptions, readily supported the Empire, and much more enthusiastically than they did the Republic. Tarkin, of course, is the most notable example of this, but there are many others, including Admiral Yularen, Captain Paleon, and even Hero of the Republic, Terranald Screed. The exceptions to this rule are quite rare, with Jan Dodona and Sagar Autumn being the only notable examples. But why was this? Why did naval officers in particular hate the Republic so much? As it turns out, there are several reasons. The first reason deals almost exclusively with the separatist admirals. Especially as the Clone Wars drew closer, the Republic had a habit of simply suppressing local conflicts and moving on, instead of properly resolving them. The CIS High Command was full of officers from those wars that had been bitter due to what they saw as unfair treatment of their people, just as the private navies of corporate factions had been fueled by such officers previously. Both Admiral Trench and General Grievous actually fall into this category, albeit for different conflicts. Trench's situation was the classic example of poor Republic conflict resolution. Around 4 decades before the Clone Wars, Trench was fighting in the Andoan Wars, a series of conflicts between Ando's Spivarelda government and the Andoan Free Colonies. Trench slaughtered the Free Colonists, winning a series of major battles before crushing them at the bloody but decisive Battle of Requiche. It was only at that point that the Republic saw fit to intervene. And by intervene, we mean they separated the two sides and forced them to both disarm. It was an absolutely terrible idea that caused a lot of bitterness and resentment, much like the real-world Treaty of Versailles, and it was this that led the Spivarelda to become one of the governments to secede from the Republic in 24 BBY. Trench was more than happy to join the CIS because of this, and when the Clone Wars began, the Andoan Wars restarted right along with it, though this time they actually had a conclusion. General Grievous's situation was even worse. It was an outright miscarriage of justice. Grievous, then a warlord of Kali, had been essentially trying to wipe out the Yamri, a species of insectoids from the planet Huk that had attacked Kali and tried to enslave the Kalish. The Republic ignored Kaylee's pleas for help, leaving Grievous to his own devices, but intervened when he began to fight back. Yamri war crimes were ignored, and the Kalish were essentially forced into starvation by Republic sanctions. Needless to say, this is why Grievous hated the Republic so much, and why almost all of the Kali worshipped him as a god after he died. Within the Republic Navy, problems were a bit more nuanced. A lot of them, however, come back to the problem of people not earning ranks. As we've established in previous videos, the bulk of the Navy's officers came from the judicial forces, and many of the more competent officers saw most of the judicial transfers as having received their positions purely because of family rank, which has plenty of backing considering that this was the case for many in the judicials. Of course, this problem was never rectified, and indeed, it became worse under the Empire, as most admirals instead had other problems. More Republic officers instead suffered from what we'll call Ram-Koda syndrome. They just didn't like clones. Many in the Republic expressed the desire to have so-called real men to command, and weren't comfortable with commanding clones. We'll address this in length in another video where we'll discuss several exceptions to this rule, but those officers were indeed exceptions. Most of their colleagues were instead more like Tarkin. This sort of mentality led to change even before the Clone Wars ended. By the end of the conflict, the Republic had begun staffing warships with recruits instead of clones, as seen at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Clones, of course, were still present on most ships, but rapidly dwindling numbers of them were actually affiliated with the Navy proper, instead of ground or starfighter forces. Obviously, this policy became the standard fairly early into the reign of the Empire. The biggest reason for the problem was actually the Jedi. When it came to tactics, nobody really liked the Jedi. Even those officers who were very loyal to the Republic often expressed exasperation with them. To most officers, they had a nice naval system ready to go, and the Jedi came along and mucked it all up. Unfortunately for the Republic, they were completely correct in this, and in most cases, the Jedi caused more problems for the Navy than they were worth. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. The Jedi were tactically inept. Because of the command structure instituted for the Grand Army, the Jedi technically had oversight over the officers of the Republic Navy, which means that when conflicts of strategy came up, the Jedi got their way more often than not. This often caused unnecessary casualties. For a perfect example of this, see the early stages of the Battle of Ryloth. Jedi interference in the Navy did have a few benefits though. The Republic Navy and Grand Army were more closely linked than the Imperial Navy and Army later would be, in large part thanks to the universality of Jedi command. And of course, there were competent Jedi tacticians, most notably Oppa and Cesis. But the downsides far outweighed the upsides, so badly that Admiral Tarkin ended up complaining to Palpatine in a letter asking him to separate the Jedi from the Navy at the start of 20 BBY. This also tied into the earlier concept of officers not earning their rank. Most Jedi had no experience whatsoever as commanders, and so it infuriated real officers to no end to have to take orders from them, especially Padawans. Even the more Jedi-friendly officers like Admiral Yularen held a strong distaste for Jedi command, which led many to readily accept the Empire's anti-Jedi policies. They believed that the Clone Wars would have gone better had the Jedi not interfered with the Navy, and they were entirely right. The problem of the Jedi in the Navy was intentionally created by Palpatine as a means of fueling anti-Jedi sentiment, and it worked out quite well. Palpatine was deliberately trying to get his officers to dislike the Republic as a means of creating a loyal base on which to build his new order, and that plan worked out perfectly. Most of these problems, in fact, can be traced back to the Sith as well, meaning that all of this was ultimately just the dark side plot. So that was our analysis of why many naval officers seemingly hated the Republic, and as per usual, I want to know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did we nail this analysis, or did we miss some reasons that you can think of? Let us know. And just before you go guys, you know the drill, please make sure you check out all the links in the description below, our Discord links, our Geetsly's Gaming Network links, and of course the Patreon links. And also guys, if you're a history buff like me, I think you'll love our second channel called The Front. It covers World War I, World War II, and Vietnam War history, and we plan to expand that as well. So if you want to join us on a ride throughout the ages, then make sure you go check out that channel and give it some love. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.